It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview Jelani Brown, the owner of What the Game Means to Me Sports Podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good today, Brandon. Thank you again for having me on your show. It's an honor and a pleasure. And just looking forward to our conversation today. Again, like I said, thank you for having me on, and look forward to what we have to talk about.
You're welcome. Can you talk about how you got started with your podcast, What the Game Means to Me?
Yes, of course. So I just started podcasting. Honestly, I'm pretty new. I just started in like May. I had been thinking about it for like a year before I actually posted an episode, but I officially started in May. I guess the first idea that it came about for me starting it was pretty much I graduated from Georgia State with a sports administration degree. I graduated last year, and I didn't have like the most, normal or orthodox way of going to college. Like I was, I didn't really stay on campus. I didn't really have friends. I wasn't really in, groups or stuff like that may have helped me, progress in the sports industry a little bit quicker. Because I always had so much to do. I was so busy. I was, kind of like on my own and stuff. So I had to do other things. But basically, the idea came from I was figuring I can interview people in the sports industry or things like that to kind of get their insight on how they got their start, and just like what sports meant to them in general, like why they even went that career path. But I also knew I wanted to interview some like of my old teammates and friends and coaches and things like that because of course they play sports, whether it's on college level or professionally. So I was like, I'm gonna interview them as well, just to get their insight of kind of like what the game means to them in a sense. So pretty much that's kind of like where it started. I just want to get people's ideas like of how sports affected their life, their career path, and just their overall selves, like as a person. Because I feel like no matter if you make it professionally or not, or whether you go into the sports industry or not working, that sports has some type of effect on you, whether you were, whether you played growing up, there was somebody that you idolized growing up, you had a favorite team, some way, some form, somehow, sports affects your life or, can shape your emotion to the person that you, grow up to be. So that's kind of where the idea of the podcast came from.
That's a wonderful idea. Can you talk about some of your segments that you have on the podcast?
Yeah, so first few episodes, I really was just doing like, just basic interviews that I did with some people, like, with one of my old coaches and teammates, and then another one with like a, big vending machine guy on Twitter and stuff. So I was just doing like regular interviews. But like throughout, I guess the shows, like I typically like to play a game at the end. I always like to end off with something fun. So I've done like top three. Top three is my one of my favorite ones. That kind of came like the idea kind of came from like Twitter. Like I do top three and then like a start them, bench them, and cut them. I do those two a lot, and then I also kind of like do like a fill in the blank, like with one word. Like I'll give them a sentence, maybe about somebody, famous sport athlete or just like a team in general. Like, and I kind of try to personalize it to them as well. Like whether it's their favorite team or player or something like that, I'll personalize it to them. They make them fill in the blank of the word. Like I'll give them a sentence like, LeBron James is what, and then they'll tell me, and that's kind of like the games I do. So typically those are the segments I like to do the most, like top three, fill in the blank, and start them, bench and cut them, like as a games towards the end. But throughout, kind of just ask them kind of like interview questions and such like that.
That's wonderful. Can you talk about
I forgot to mention, I also do, I guess.
Go on.
Oh, sorry, I was gonna say sorry. Also, you probably asked it a little bit later, but I started like one of my segments I did was like an NFL sports or NFL SmackDown, to where I kind of got different I got different fans of teams that kind of smack talk against each other, and a pretty long segment. I got into divisions, and then I made a tournament, and then pretty much it went from there. I had people vote on it, and got to a championship round that I still have to do myself this week.
Can you talk about how the process is with that SmackDown talk?
Yeah, of course. So kind of how I put that together. Like I was saying before, I was doing kind of just regular like interviews and stuff, and I talked to my dad, and one of the things he was saying, like, you got a good podcast, but a lot of people like to laugh, like laughing probably will, catch their eye, catch their attention, bring them in and make them, want to listen to more and see more and stuff. So I was like, okay, you're right. So NFL was coming up, it was still dealing with COVID, and no one really knew if we have NFL season or not. But I was like, I might as well just do it anyway, whether we have one or not. It would be fun for everyone involved. So pretty much, I was like, I'm gonna start the NFL SmackDown series. I joined a few Facebook groups like NFL and just sports in general Facebook groups, and just put in there like, hey, I'm looking for a fan of each team for a project. If just comment your team, then I'll message you, what the details are. So I got a lot of comments and a lot of responses, but I kind of just handpicked the ones I wanted. There was a few teams that were difficult to find, like for the Jaguars, I couldn't really find one, so I had to find someone that was just a sports fan in general and went to talk about them. And then the Cardinals was pretty hard too. I think I got somebody, but they ended up not being able to come on. And then one more team that was pretty difficult to find, but I found it at the last minute. I can't even think of it right now. I think the Carolina Panthers, yeah. Found somebody for them, but I don't think he was able to come on either. But all in all, like I said, that's what I did. I kind of messaged a bunch of people, or they messaged me, or commented rather. I messaged them. I handpicked them. I put it together. Found 32 fans, and then I put them in. Basically, how I did it, I made a tournament bracket. So I made each division like an episode. So AFC East, NFC West, NFC South. I pretty much had them go against each other. So it'd be 4 people on each fan. From each team, they'd go against each other. I asked a specific amount of specific questions, whatever, to kind of get them riled up and going at it, talking smack. And then I put the poll on Twitter for them to vote on who they want to advance to the next round. They did that. So then after the division round, I had the conference round because I'd have 4 teams from each division that would win and would be in the conference for the NFC and AFC. And pretty much the same thing, asked a certain amount of questions, kind of get them riled up, put it on Twitter again for them to vote on the poll. And now I'm down to AFC and an NFC winner, actually. One's a Detroit Lions fan and the other one's an Indianapolis fan. So like I said, I got to probably schedule that, hopefully the last episode of that this week. So we can get that done. I was trying to let them get like maybe a game or 2 in so they can kind of see how their teams are faring, so they have something to talk smack about now. So we're 4 weeks in, so I think it's good enough time. So I should be able to get that last episode done this week.
That's a wonderful idea about that smack talk. Can you talk about some of the people that you've interviewed for your podcast?
Yeah, of course. So people I still want to interview for sure, but the ones that I've gotten so far, I was lucky on my first interview podcast. I was lucky enough to have a former teammate and coach in Nafis Pickett and Will Huzzy. So that one was pretty a lot easier to get, and a lot of the ones that I've had, a lot of people that I've had on my podcast so far is ones that I've played with or just grew up, playing with, been friends with a very long time. So I've been fortunate enough to, message them on Twitter or whatever, and then been able to get them on, like Jordan Ford and as well. But I'll get to those. But first interview I had was, like I said, Will Huzzy and Nafis Pickett. They're both really close because that was the first player he coached all the way through high school. But he came my last year or 2 when I played football as well in high school. But they had a really close relationship and bond. I already knew that. So I kind of wanted to get them both on my podcast for that, and because they both went viral for certain different reasons. So my coach, he actually went viral, was on a lot of different news outlets for using his players after a big win in a game to propose to his girlfriend, which is now his fiance, of course. So, it was on CNN, ESPN, Bleacher Report, Nation, like a lot of different those sports, like, posted a lot of it on Twitter, Instagram, all their social medias or whatever, which was pretty cool. And then my friend Will Huzzy, he was on number one, or he got the number one play on ESPN Top 10, when they were doing that, because he caught like a little one-handed catch in the back of the end zone. So that was really cool. Like I said, I knew them two personally on like a deeper level because they had like that like father-son bond. So I knew kind of like that story along with just telling the stories about how they went viral would be really cool to have on for my first episode. So that's the one I like a lot, and that's the one that also has probably like the most listens and downloads out of my catalogs of episodes that I've posted so far. But after that, I did one with Brother Graham. He's big on Twitter for helping people start up their own vending machine company. He started up his own and is making really good money off that. So he's pretty big on there for that. And didn't really play sports or anything, but I knew he was a big sports head. I would always see him talking about sports on the timeline, or whatever. So I just decided to reach out. He said, yeah, he wanted to be on some podcasts and it'd be cool to get on. And around that time, The Last Dance was on. So we talked a lot about The Last Dance and then just 90s basketball versus basketball today and the different players and their styles and stuff. So he's really, really smart guy when it comes to analyzing the game of basketball. So I thought it would be cool to have him on. And then also talk about how to start your own vending machine company. So that was really cool to have him on. And I said, other little ones I had later on, I interviewed one of my old teammates and friends, Jordan Floyd, who plays in Italy. He was going to play for Denver Nuggets, but COVID kind of stopped. I played Italy for Adina Basket, and then AJ Cheeseman. He just went overseas to Kadir Madeira as well. I think that's in Spain. So both of them I had on my podcast as well. It's really cool. We talked about HBU schools and like should players start making it there, and then just the NBA finals as a whole, who they thought would win, their predictions, just a bunch of stuff like that, and then their journeys to where they got to, because they had some trials and tribulations they had to fight through to get to where they're playing overseas basketball, then hopefully one day make it to the NBA. And then more recently, I did one with I know someone that you're going to be interviewing as well, Mr. Denny Lennon, who's I call him the Venice Beach legend because he just did a lot for California in general. So he was a really, really cool guy. We talked about his Lakers. We also talked about him starting the Venice Beach backyard, the championships and everything, how that came about, and then all his other ventures. He was a coach, did play-by-play broadcasting, interviewed him. Norm Bass was a big one. Also his cousins, Jimmy Lennon Jr., who does the Showtime boxing ring announcing. So he was a really cool guy to have on as well, Venice Beach legend. Yeah, those are a lot of the people that I've had on. I had a few other people on, but those are the ones I remember the most.
Can you talk about the process of going and finding the people and reaching out to them?
Yeah, of course. So like I said, luckily I've been fortunate enough where some people, like I already had them in my circle, I already knew them, and knew if I reached out to them that they'll be willing to do it. Like I said, like Will Huzzy and a few Pickett, those my former coach and former player. I knew they're really cool. I talk to them, see them all the time on my Twitter. So knew if I reached out, they would do it. Also, Jordan Floyd and AJ Cheeseman, same thing with them. Like I played basketball growing up with them, so I figured they would do it as well. Ones that kind of went on a limb, there's a few that actually reached out to me, or I guess they saw some of my shows and decided that they would reach out. When they felt like the audience matched up with, or my audience matched up with their audience, so they felt like it would be really cool to get on my podcast. And one of them actually was Denny Lennon. He reached out to me a few weeks ago, and I was like, oh yeah, it's pretty cool. Like we should get this done. So we just messaged back and forth. Found a time to do it. I do a lot of StreamYards, so just found a good time to do it with him, and we got on and we did it. So it's pretty cool. Like it's pretty cool when you see certain people reaching out to you, even with you. I was lucky and blessed when I saw you reach out to me. I was like, oh yeah, any opportunity I get when someone reaches out to me, I'm gonna take it, whether it's being on the podcast or interviewing someone for a podcast. So that's what I really liked about it. Like I said, he reached out to me. I checked out some of his shows, and I was like, yeah, let's do it. Another one someone reached out to me about being on my podcast was Greg Rowe. That's his name. I think his name the other day, but Greg Rowe. He was starter of the Freestyle Trampoline Association. He kind of helps like people that do that freestyle trampoline and parkour, so kind of get like brand deals and things like that. Travel the world and do all this amazing events and stuff. So he reached out to me as well. Felt like my audience would match up to kind of like what he does for the Freestyle Trampoline Association. So I decided to do, StreamYard Live with him as well, and get him on the podcast. I learned a lot about, a sector of sports I had no clue about at all. So it was really cool to have him on for sure. And then everyone else, the last few I actually just had Tyler Boronsky on as well. We kind of met through because he works for a company I do an internship with now. So that one should be coming out soon, either today or tomorrow. But I did a live with him and also gonna formulate to an audio podcast. So it was really cool. He works for NESN, which is the Boston Sports Network, and he does content producing for them. So,
what are some of your future plans for what the game means to me?
Yeah, of course. So, future plans, few things. One, like I said, I want to continue this NFL Smack Talk SmackDown series. For years to come. Also finish it this week, hopefully, to get a champion crowned. I do hope to continue to still do interviews and stuff with people in the sports industry, whether they're working in the sports sector somehow, some way, broadcasting or video production, audio production, social media, whatever the case may be. And also some coaching players as well, kind of like what I've been doing, some interviews and stuff. But I think I was supposed to actually start this podcast with one of my old teammates. We're gonna start it together, but I kind of went on ahead and started myself. But actually, I just did episode with him last week, and I think I'm gonna start bringing him on. We're either gonna keep this same show, or I'm gonna keep the same show myself, or we're gonna start our own little show adventure. We haven't decided what the name may be yet, but with Thad Bell. So I'm either gonna bring on a co-host to this show, or we're gonna start kind of like our own sector, and I'm gonna keep what I'm doing with this channel going. But the things that I got some ideas I got cooking up, something like things are similar with the NFL Smack Talk. Thinking I might do it, possibly find like some old heads and some new kids that grew up in this kind of generation of basketball. I might do it on a scale of thinking about either doing on a scale of having them draft certain players in different decades, and then kind of debating like whose play style is best, or who would play better in today's day and game. So stuff like that I'm just thinking about. I'm going to continue to do my little games at the end of the show. Top three is a big one and a famous one. It's actually Tuesday, so I have to start posting my top 3 Tuesday posts as well. But just little stuff like that. So probably finding more segment games that I know people gonna hook on to and like and want to watch, along with possibly either bringing the co-host onto this show, or we're gonna start our own little show and adventure. So just stay tuned.
That's wonderful. What advice would you give upcoming and future sports podcasts that are looking to get into the sports industry?
Of course. I'm still pretty new. I'm still learning and growing along the way. Every day I see and learn something new myself, whether it's in these Facebook groups that I've joined, or just searching the internet myself, or just looking at other people's or other sports podcasts that have followed me on Instagram or Twitter or whatever. I'll look at their pages and stuff and kind of see what they do and emulate a little bit, but tweak it to fit what I typically like to do. So I'm learning and growing every day. So I'm no expert at all. But what I would say is someone that wants to start a podcast, or the sport podcast, or podcast, just to kind of jump into it, like you know everything before you start it off, because that's kind of like what I did. I just jumped into it. Like I remember I used to look at this guy's like YouTube videos and read like his little blog posts. His name Pat Flynn. He kind of got me just kind of started. I did of course you got to do a little bit of research and put a few things together before you just go ahead and just jump right in it. So I did like little backhand things before things, like I got my logo done. I did a little bit of research on like kind of like what I wanted to talk about, like what I wanted to do. So I actually did 3 episodes. I dropped 3 episodes all at the same time. I don't know if that was the smartest thing to do, because that was one of the tips that he gave. I would say steer away from doing that, just because he said unless you have like a crime type podcast, like something that like is a story that people want to tune into like next and next and next, like a sports kind of podcast, you kind of got to do episode by episode by episode. Like you got to drop them like individually on individual days, because now when I first did that, my first, like I said, two, but I dropped 2 episodes on the same day. Kind of talked about why I wanted to start the podcast and also about the NFL draft that didn't do so well just because that one was taken over and listened to the most, and they also shared it a lot. So the other one has gotten listened to a lot more now, but I would steer away from doing that. But like I said, kind of just jump into it. You're gonna learn along the way. You're gonna learn a lot about yourself and about podcasting in general. So you don't need to have all the answers and know everything before you start. Just get yourself. You don't even have to really have a mic. Just get you some good audio, whether it is a mic or earphones, whatever the case may be. Get you some good audio. Get some software on your computer to edit that audio, and kind of jump right into it. Be yourself, and talk about what you know. Talk about it with pride, and people are gonna tune in and listen to you for you. So that's why I will say, just kind of just jump right into it. Don't be afraid. Talk about what you know in the sports world, and just do it. You'll learn along the way, and things will come more naturally as you continue to do it.
Who inspired you to make your own podcast?
That's a good question. It kind of, honestly, I didn't really been a thought of mine until friend Thaddeus, like I said, that might come on and be my co-host. Put it in my head, and we're talking one day. I don't even know what we were talking about, but he said something about possibly starting his own podcast, and that just really put the head. But like I said, we talked about a year before I even dropped the episode. So he kind of said something about it, and we talked about it. It was yeah, we can just go ahead. We can start it together, honestly. And from there, it just was an idea that formulated over a year, to where when quarantine kicked off, I just finally was like, you know what, I might as well just do it now. There's no better time than now to do it. I'm gonna be in the house anyway, so start putting stuff together and drop some content. He was going through some things. He wasn't really ready, so I was like, at first I was kind of waiting for him, but then I was like, you know what, I can just start it myself, start my own venture, and we can come together later on down the road. So he was kind of what put the bug in my ear, inspiration wise, because a lot of people may say they go Rogan or they listen to other different people's podcasts, and I never really listened to podcasts before I started my podcast. To be truthful, I watched a lot of First Take and Undisputed, of course. So if anything, they're not podcasts, of course. They're Showtime TV. They're TV shows. They're prime time. 10 o'clock and 9:30. So they're their type of style and everything of Shannon and Stephen A. So if anything, they would inspire me, to really do it, because that's kind of how I saw me and my friend doing our podcast was, debate style, mixed in with, some fun game segments and stuff like I do now. So, those two things would probably be the outlets that influenced me to start my own podcast. Like I said, my friend Thad Bell and Undisputed, First Take, journalists and stuff like that.
Where can my listeners find your podcast at on social media?
Yes. So I've just started a lot of different social medias at first. It's probably one thing I should have said as well with my advice was, when you're starting off, kick off your social medias when you start off your podcast as well. Because I was a little late coming to the game. In social media, things aren't going to just grow overnight. You're going to have to, do a lot of little different things in order to catch people's attention, to make them want to follow you and listen to you and things like that. But also probably start your social medias when you're starting your podcast. I didn't start mine until a few months afterwards. My Instagram is still pretty new. My Twitter is still pretty new. But to answer your question, sorry, where they can find me at Twitter, it's at WTGMTM, which is just the first letter of every word in my podcast, what the game means to me. So WTGMTM at WTGMTM podcast is on Twitter. So I know it's a little hard, but like I said, it's just the first letter of the name of my podcast. And then on Instagram is just what the game means to me. So you can just type in the whole thing at what the game means to me. And on Facebook, I have a Facebook page as well. It's just what the game means to me. If you type that in, it should pop up as well. So yeah, but my podcast is on pretty much every platform. It's now on, Amazon. They have, or Amazon Music. They now have podcasts. It's on Apple Music, Spotify, Stitcher. You can find it on Simplecast. They have like a little website that I have in my link tree. And all those social medias, my link tree is in the bio as well. But it's pretty much on any platform, anything, anywhere you listen to podcasts, you'll find it. So that's where you can find me, and hopefully follow me.
Thank you again for your interview, and best of luck with your podcast, What the Game Means to Me.
Of course, like I said, I definitely appreciate you for having me on, letting you tell my story. Great intricate questions. And I definitely appreciate having me on today, Brandon. And same thing with you and your sports podcast. I know you have a pretty busy schedule, a lot of people lined up, and I look forward to listening and talking more in the future.
Thank you. You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at @talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again for your interview, and best of luck.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.